Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing, Camper Kings UK, and affiliation with BetMate. Hello everybody, welcome to episode 24 of season 21-22 of Across the Park podcast on YouTube and audio podcast as well. Thank you to all our new subscribers on both. Myself, Ian Mills, and Gary Judge are the Evertonians. For anybody who's not seen or heard us before, we are going to have banter and debate with our friends from Across the Park. Gary Murray and Phil Roberts are the Reds this week. Excuse me. Big thank you to our sponsors over at Fair Clothing. Fairclothing.com. If you tap in ATP20 after you've spent your life savings on the amazing range of clothes, you'll get 20% off, which we hope helps. And Camper Kings UK as well. Camper vans for any occasion, whether it's a family, whether it's maybe even a cheeky stag do on a weekend away with the boys. Get over to Camper Kings, have a look at those camper vans, and if you quote Across the Park podcast, you will get free insurance and a bottle of bubbly as well. We'll start with the Blues, Judgy. Plenty to cover on both sides. We'll start with the Blues. Me and you had a podcast last week with the ESC from the 27 campaign. Everything at that point was still up in the air. It seems to have, for me, looking on Twitter and looking on social media and speaking to people, the mood seems a lot better. Probably due to the fact that we had a really good deadline day yesterday. Two good players have came in, which I don't doubt are risks. They're not players who've really played at the very, very top domestically for a long time. But we've brought in a young, ambitious manager who I think has eased the feeling amongst the fan base. How are you feeling?
Yeah, optimistic, quietly optimistic, because we've learned from good transfer windows in the past, as I'm sure the lads across the park will remind us very quickly and constantly. But yeah, optimistic, like you said before. It was a tough few weeks, tough months to be honest, before Benitez left, and then in the following week or two where there was uncertainty around who the manager was. There was all the scandal, if you will, of Pereira on Sky Sports and the protesting against the board, etc. But like you said, I think it has calmed down. People are, focusing on the right things again, which are the right noises coming out from the manager, the board doing what they should be doing in terms of putting the hands in the pockets where needed. But and we'll come on to this in a moment, structuring some decent deals, regardless of what we think about the immediate impact of those players will be the sensible deals, the deals that are not going to break the bank, and the certainly deals that will protect us if things go wrong, which hasn't been the case in the past. And like you say, a young, ambitious manager, again, a manager which, like the players, is a risk for the club. But as the board have pointed out, it's just as much of a risk for him. He took a big gamble coming to Everton because it's not an easy place to be right now. But again, getting back to my original point, it's a much better complexion at the moment than it was a few weeks ago.
Feels a bit better for me. I had to bounce a little bit going into the Aston Villa game when we had Duncan as the interim manager, and that didn't quite work out. Then we had the 27 campaign, which really put the pressure on the club, I think, and we won't get into that because we've had a long podcast, which is still available on YouTube and audio. The question I wanted to ask really, and I want this to be positive, but I've also got to be realistic. Frank Lampard wasn't the name that we were talking about when Benitez left. It's took a number of obstacles and things for it to get to Lampard. Is that going to be a problem short term and long term? Are we now expecting too much because of the pressure that probably our own fans have put on us?
It's a different pressure initially, and I've spoke to a few people about this. The pressure in the here and now is to keep us in the Premier League, and not least because the first three fixtures he's got in the league are one, very winnable, and two, against teams that we would either like to suck in there or to kind of leave behind us in the shape of Newcastle and Southampton. So it's a different type of pressure than what managers coming in have had before, apart from maybe Sam Allardyce. So I think if he gets over that initial hurdle, and it is a huge hurdle, but if he gets over those first few games, then the pressure changes, doesn't it? It's not the pressure's released, the pressure changes then, and it's then about like, what have you got long term? What have you got in your army? How are we going to play? How are you going to embed some of these young players we brought in? Some of the young players in the background. A lot of people will be expecting because of his reputation at Derby and at Chelsea, that'll be breeding some of our academy players, that'll be getting the most out of Nathan Patterson, who's just come in, that, we'll see more of Lewis Dobbin, that Anthony Gordon will go to another level again. So it then comes a different pressure. The Dele Alli one is a different pressure again because, there's a player there, everyone knows that, but he hasn't shown that for quite some time. But, as I say, it's a massive job for him. It's a massive job for the club, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got. It's just a bit more exciting. It's a bit more unknown.
We get lots of comments from both sets of fans, but just to stick with Everton at the moment, we've had lots of comments on the past few weeks, and it's nice to know that people do seem to care what we say. I think now, unless this goes, I know Gary's going to put his fingers crossed here, unless this goes instantly, disastrously wrong, we've got to be patient, haven't we? Got to be patient.
Yeah, you have got to be patient, and I completely buy into that. But we've also got to deal with the here and now, which is a relegation fight until those 3 games are out the way. Now, if he wins all 3 of them, or even if he wins 2 of the 3, it's probably fair to say because of who the games are against, that we're almost going to be fine. Do you know what I mean? But we are, beyond that, we've got to be patient. I don't think we can afford to be patient with the games that we've got coming up. We've got to expect that manager gets a bit of a bounce out of those players, because let's be honest, any new manager normally does. So regardless of whether it's Lampard or anyone else, we should be expecting that manager to be able to pick points up. And if we're not expecting that manager to pick points up, then we shouldn't have appointed him. Phil?
Just on that, can I just ask you about this? So Frank Lampard seems to have a philosophy and a style that he wants to play. Are you almost saying, forget about that for now? Abandon that at the minute?
Yeah.
And therefore you would almost forgive him for what the football looks like if it's getting results.
And any fan would, and I think Frank Lampard will be pragmatic enough to say that himself. He's not going to be able to bed in all his ideas and his philosophy straight away. I spoke to you, Phil, about the whole Duncan Ferguson thing, and you had somewhat of an insight into what it was maybe like on the training grounds under Ferguson, and maybe it was going from, one polar opposite to the other too quickly. I don't think Lampard's that, and certainly Paul Clements, as first team coach, will know that that's not going to be feasible, and it's not going to be effective for us to try and rip the book up and try and, bring in a completely different style of footy straight away. He said it in his first interview, that he knows that what we've got to do initially is get the fans on side, and the players have got to go out and work hard on and off the ball, and that's the minimum, and we start from there. If he gets that right and he gets all these players working hard, which, me and Millsy know more than anyone has been a difficult job for every manager, then I don't think we'll be far away from getting 6 to 9 points from them next 3 games. And then the job's half done in terms of them having a chance and getting some patience from the fans.
I think the 2 new signings coming in, we'll get to that very quickly. I think it gives us a different way of playing. So should we get the points that we need in the next few games, I'd imagine that there'll come a time for the fans to be patient, where we draw 1-1 at home against somebody, or we get beat 1-0, but we're trying to blood youngsters. That's what I mean by that. Before we get on to Van der Beek and Dele Alli, in the past 10 days, we've heard twice from the owner, Farhad Moshiri. He's done a YouTube interview, he's done an email and a full statement in the club programme and club website. Is that refreshing to you to be able to hear, not so much of a plan, but we're hearing from him? And one thing he did say on the YouTube interviews of Everton FC TV, he accused himself alongside of us of being impatient, which we've said on the show, haven't we, that he has been quite trigger happy, rightly or wrongly. Is it refreshing to you to hear from him finally?
Yes and no. But let's be honest, and this is the case with all owners across the globe, you don't really hear from owners, and you shouldn't have to hear from owners. The only time you should be hearing from them is when pardon the pun, the obligatory hits the fan and there's no one else to turn to. So he's had to stand up. He wouldn't have wanted it this way, and I don't think we wanted it this way as fans, but at least he's shown a little bit of
steel.
Yeah, and I think he's realised, look, I've got to stand up and be counted here, because ultimately I'm the person who's sanctioned all these decisions. I'm the person who's gone and spent 40 million on a woe, because that's pretty public that he said, I want that. I'm the person who wanted James Rodriguez. I'm the person, you know what I mean? So he's made a lot of decisions that have had a negative impact on the club's short-term fortunes and the long-term future from a financial point of view. So he's had to go out and go on, Kaz.
Just on that, we've got a message off Terry Smith through Twitter, and he said, definition of success and nil satis nisi optimum, best approach to strategy. Has Mashiri turned the tide, and will short-term stability take the pressure off him?
We don't know, do we? I think to finish answering Millsy's question first, but that one from the listeners is very relevant as well. It was good to hear from him, and it was refreshing to know that he's not just going to hide behind it. He'll try and he'll try and stand up and be counted. He's gone a long way over the last few weeks of showing that he'll address things that the fans are concerned about. But to answer the listener's question, no, I don't think he's stemmed the tide yet. I think he's appeased the fans in that, we can see that they've tried to do something about it, that the board have responded, that there's been appointments that are being made in the background that are going to go some way to addressing the issues with the structure and the strategy. But there's a long way to go, I think, before, the first part of his question had addressed as in like nothing but the best and all that type of stuff, and addressing concerns about the strategy. We're a long way from that.
Okay, I did want to ask you, Judgy, before we move on. We've brought in Donny van der Beek. We've brought in Dele Alli. You've referenced there that you think maybe in the interim period, that we might not play the way Frank Lampard wants us to play. Once we get, ideally, to a situation where Lampard can blood these players in and play them, where do you see them fitting in? Because are they very similar players, attack-minded central players?
To just run a question alongside that as well, another one off a listener, Darren, through Twitter again. He said, could you give a score out of 10 for the Everton's business this transfer window? What would you give it and why?
Okay, so we'll start with Darren's question because it's probably leads us into the next question. So including Nathan Patterson, Mikalenko, El Ghazi, it's been a mixed window. I think the first three signings were a bit strange in that one was intended to be a replacement for Lucas Digne. You'd have to say that you'd have to give that a 4 at the moment because he's not ready to replace Lucas Digne for one, and Lucas Digne is a far better player than him now. Nathan Patterson, probably a 6 because he's definitely a promising young player. There's been a lot of people who've come out from north of the border to say that how much he should go straight into the team. He's a very good player, this, that and the other. We haven't seen that yet, and he hasn't really been in the squad, so you can only really give that a 6. And I'm going north of a 5 because of the fact that he's so young and he's so promising, potentially. El Ghazi, again, I'd probably have to give it a 4 as well because it was a misfit signing. Benitez, it seems, didn't even want him. It was it seems as though it was influenced by an agent. So again, I'd have to probably averages the first 3 signings out of a 5. And then, the next 2 that have come in, which kind of leads me on to Millsy's question. Dele Alli, I'd probably give a 7 because of the fact that the way the deal was structured was a massive plus.
Definitely.
So, and the reason I say that is in this season, even if he plays every single game, we're not going to spend a penny in this season. So even if he plays every game from now to the end of the season, it's less than 20. Therefore, we're going into that summer having not spent a penny on him apart from his wages. We then go into that summer knowing that we're going to be offloading for 3 or 4 players at least that are on decent money, which probably pays for that 10 million as we go into the next season. If he performs poorly, we probably look to offload him in the summer, or we certainly start to think about that proposition. So I think I give that a 7 because if it goes very well, it's a coup. Even if we end up paying 20 million for him, or I'd say upwards of 40. Upwards of 40 is contingent on us winning trophies and qualifying for Europe. That is 1 million miles away from that at the moment. But if we get there with Dele Alli, then you've got to say it's probably a 9 in the end, isn't it, as a signing? But for now, let's say it's a 7. Van der Beek, probably in between a 6 and a 7. We can't say hands on heart that we know that he's suited to the Premier League yet. He still smells a little bit like a Davy Klaassen because he's a similar stature in terms of his physique, plays in a similar position. The United fans obviously got behind him, but I think they got behind him because he was like, they were just getting behind the player who wasn't in the team, thinking that could be a bit of a saviour for us. But, there's a couple of managers now that haven't given him game time. There's probably something not right there, is there? So overall, I think I'll give it a 6. with the potential for it to be better. But there's a lot of unknowns in all them signings, including the first two and the second two. So probably a 6. I'm pleased. So I'm better than a 5. A 5 would be me I've got no feeling about it. I'm probably more optimistic than I am, dreading those signings taking the pitch.
I'd go with that. I think it's hard to really answer the question honestly, because will Van der Beek, will he make a big difference, or will he struggle again, which he's already struggled in England? I don't know. Dele Alli has been out of form for north of 18 months now. That has to be a risk. We've got 2 young fullbacks. Can you throw them into a cauldron if this season gets any worse? That's me looking at one aspect of it. And the other side is Van der Beek could just need this move. Dele Alli could just need this move. There's a World Cup in the winter, which both players will have their eyes on. These 2 fullbacks could come into a team which will improve and improve and improve. I think it's hard. I do think it's hard to answer right now, somebody on that one, Judgy.
Going back to your question though, Millsy, I think he's got to play probably a 4-4-2 or a 4-2, like a diamond, because Dele Alli, as we've seen with Tottenham, can't really fit into a 4-3-3 unless he's the advanced of the 3 midfielders and he's got 2 holding midfielders behind him. Can't really play out. He can play off the flank, but he hasn't really got that devastating pace. The only way you could play him off the flank is if you had a really attacking fullback and he was like an inverted winger who come in behind the striker. So he would have to be clever to think on how he puts Dele Alli into the team. I think Van der Beek probably fits in a little bit easier. Probably could play in a 4-3-3 as one of the 3 midfielders, as he's done with Man United. He certainly could play in that diamond, probably anywhere in that diamond apart from at the base of it. So I think he's a little bit more flexible in the way we put him in. But to play both of them, it would have to be in a diamond, I think. And you're probably talking like Alan, Decore, Van der Beek and Ali, and then having Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin as your pace and your outlets up there.
Ali can also play front, can't he?
Yeah, so Richarlison's the one named I was thinking there when you were talking about that. Where does he then fit? Because you've got Tamari Gray as well, haven't you? And to be fair to Tamari Gray and Richarlison, they're 2 players that we have tended to rely on when we've been able to this season. Sorry, Phil.
I was just thinking Ali can also play up front. He doesn't have to play in the midfield. Didn't he wasn't he up there with Kane at one point?
He played off Kane a couple of times, didn't he?
Yeah, it's like in a 4-4-1-1. He'll play off Kane, but it's like Mills, he was getting at there, and it's a very fair point because these players have still been very important to us. Where does Tamari Gray fit in? Where does Richarlison fit in? If you're playing him in that type of system, the Tottenham played him more successfully under Pochettino. He's playing behind Harry Kane. But then the issue for Dele Alli came when Son started being such an influence. And then it was the only way he could play was behind them 2. And I think that's probably, if you're going to ask him, and it's always that infamous number 10 position or the attacking midfield position that a lot of players want to play, but they're very rarely afforded that chance. I mean, you have spoke about it with Oxlade-Chamberlain, with Curtis wanting to play there, but it's like the system needs to suit them, doesn't it?
One thing I think about Ali going to use is we've heard about him training and his attitude not being necessarily great, but he has got a bit of narc about him, hasn't he? And I think that bit of narc can endear himself to the Everton fans a little bit if he starts putting a few challenges in, especially if you're in a fight type of a game. I think he could be a good fit from that point of view.
You're going to say something, Gary? To see Gary smirk then?
I was just laughing at that. That's the angle Phil's looking at it from. Yeah.
Look, to close it out for me, I think we're a lot more positive. The managers give me more hope, and the new signings give me a lot more hope going into the season. From 2 weeks ago, I was dead on my feet on this podcast. I was dead on my feet. I was just against the whole thing, and I feel an awful lot better. I'm hoping the Blues who are listening do as well. Me and Judgy will tag back in later to preview the games. But Phil, the Reds were quite busy. I didn't expect it. I'm not too sure whether you guys did in your Liverpool WhatsApp group. It from the outside, it all happens at once, but that's always the way with you, isn't it? It happens quite quick.
Yeah, there's been links to Luis, but it was more for the summer. It looks like a summer transfer target, but then Tottenham have gone in for him, and it's triggered as he did have a release clause for 60 odd million, but Porto were in serious debt. And I think they were looking at all kinds of fines and being banned from the Champions League, all kinds. So we've took advantage of that. I think we've paid them 8 million immediately, as soon as the medical was done. which they had to show to like FIFA or UEFA or someone to say they could clear the bills. What's that?
How broke are they?
I think the struggle, mate. I think they had like 300 grand in things that they needed to pay. I don't know what it was, but it might have been wages. It was like things that they had to pay and they couldn't afford it. So we solved that problem for them straight away. We've got them for 37.5 mil, rising to 50. And the difference between Liverpool and Tottenham was that our add-ons looked more realistic, like goals in the Champions League, certain tight achievements that you think Tottenham aren't going to win anything. So I think we've looked by far the more attractive deal. And it's nice to take a signing off their toes because they've done it to us many times. But no, it looks like, I don't know loads about him. I haven't seen loads of his play. I did see him score a great goal against City. I did see him play well against Liverpool. I know he's had a great Copa America. I know the Portuguese league isn't amazing, but I think he's been involved in 50% of every goal Porto have scored. And he looks at, look, he's 37.5 million, so he's not a Haaland, he's not an Mbappe, he's not necessarily the finished product, but he seems to have everything required for Liverpool and Klopp to be able to take him to that place, to a £100 million player.
The follow-up question there is if we're talking about a potentially £100 million player who has a €70 million clause contract because his previous club thought so highly of him, is he here for the bench? For me, that's not a player who sits on a bench. And if not, where does that take you with your front three or front four at times?
I mean, I don't know what you think, Gary, but look, first of all, there's a bedding in with the Klopp side. If you're going to play as a left forward, there's a big relationship with Robertson you've got to understand, as well as the press and all that. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity. We flog Salah and Mane. We absolutely flog them to death. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for him to come in, and then who knows what's going to happen in the summer. I think if the right money comes in for someone like Mane, then we could see him move on. But Liverpool definitely needed to start to think about life after Mane. Now, whether that's the end of this season or the end of next season, in the interim period, Diaz is going to get chances to play football. So that's all I look at it, Gary. What do you think?
Yeah, well, just going back to you saying about the how we struck the deal and the proposition of the money to Porto looks like more likely from Liverpool. I think a big part of it as well was that Diaz wanted Liverpool. It was Tottenham came in before us, and I think we sort of had a bit of an agreement in place that we were going to get him in the summer. But because Tottenham come in, he didn't want to wait till the summer. He wanted to move to the Premier League now, and that forced our hand. But the fact that was the trigger for us, Diaz wanted us. And that's that's been the case for Liverpool now for the last few seasons, majorly since Klopp come in. Players want to come here again and want to play for us, which is brilliant. On the fitting in front, I think I think you'll see a Firmino or a Mane leave soon, whether it be this summer, whether it be next January or next summer. I think you'll start seeing one of them move on, if not both. It depends on who we end up going for again in the summer. There's talks of us we're looking to be really active this summer. So who knows? I don't think we'll want to let Salah go. By all accounts, one of the main sticking points of Salah was the fact that he wants to see that there's going to be backup strikers and backup first team players that are going to be getting backup players for the first team for when they're coming to the end of their careers. And Salah wants to be in a team that's going to still be challenging for things when you do see the end of Mane, when you do see the end of Firmino. Van Dijk's not getting any younger. You've got a lot of our players. Henderson's 30 odd now. You've got a lot of our players who are coming towards the end of their careers, or towards the end of their Liverpool careers at least. So if that's a sticking point for Salah's contract, there's another that could be another issue solved, sign another young player. You look at Jota. Jota was wearing a guaranteed starter when he signed for Liverpool, but he's played himself into the team with how good he's been. If Diaz can come in and have the same sort of effect as what Jota's had, then it's on Mane then to win that place back. If Diaz gets a chance and hits the ground running, scores a couple of goals, makes a couple of assists, then Mane's got to come back and earn his place again.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, isn't it, Gary? Because I think it will push Mane on, the type of personality that he's got, the attitude that he's got. But it's win-win, isn't it? Either Mane gets better or Diaz is better than Mane. And either way, that's an amazing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And one of the things we always talk about is how good City are in every position with 2 players in every position. That's what we strive for. We want to be able to, we've talked about it this season, the last few podcasts, about wanting to go for trophies, go for the FA Cup, go for the Carabao Cup. We're still in the Champions League. We're still in the title race. Signings like this let us fight on all fronts. And there's no reason why we can't put runs together in every competition.
If you talk about squad depth, if you compare our forwards to City's forwards, I don't even think it's close. I think ours is well better.
Yeah, ours is well better, definitely. Even before the Diaz signing, yeah, it is, because they haven't really replaced the players that have left in the past. You think of Leroy Sané, you think of Aguero, they haven't really replaced them.
It's a different system, though, isn't it? Like,
it is a different system, but
in wide areas they play Foden, Mahrez, Sterling, Bernardo Silva. You can't say, and I know you're saying
have an half forward theirs.
Not no forwards. They're obviously not forwards, are they? But they don't play out and out forwards. They play with more of a fluid system. So I think their argument and my argument would be, if you compare their midfield and forwards with yours, it's much of a muchness in the end, isn't it?
They want to play a forward though, because that's why they were going for Kane in the summer.
Yeah, they want to play one forward, but they haven't even took the chance to bring Alvarez in now. They've said they don't want him until the end of the season. So it's like, if they were desperate for that forward, as in now, and they didn't feel as though they could be effective, then they would have done it, wouldn't they?
No, don't get me wrong. They are very... No, they're not struggling. They're very effective. But I think, you look at their front 6 players or whatever, talking about 3 subs and the 3 starters for the front 3 positions, I'd take ours. I think we're competing with them to that level where I'd actually take our midfield and all that, another thing. But we're right up there. And Luis Diaz just, complements that even further. Just adds
I was going to make about the point you both made, that you were kind of your hand was forced into making this transfer. I think it's a really positive move that your hand was forced, because let's be honest, and I'm going to say this now with bated breath, and I hope it doesn't come back and haunt me. City have more than likely won the league, haven't they? It would take a catastrophe for them to not win the league from here. The reason I make that point is that it's also unlikely that you're going to fall out of the Champions League places because of the gap between Chelsea and 4th place. There's quite a big gap growing between certainly yous and outside the Champions League places. Therefore, finishing 2nd and finishing 3rd, if you finish quite a distance behind City, is there or thereabouts, isn't it? Therefore, that the 5 months that Luis Diaz has now got to bed in between now and the end of the season should mean that he's got a much better chance of hitting the ground running in the start of next season. Whereas if you'd got in the summer, you probably would have been talking the first 4 months of next season before you'd even started to see a fully firing player. Do you know what I mean?
I do see what you're saying, but we're only 6 points. If we win our game in hand, it's only 6 points off City, and we still got to play them. So it's not that far gone. We're still in it for all 4 cup competitions. We're still in.
But in order to give yourself a better chance of doing that, though, you probably wouldn't play him, would you? You'd be playing your front 3 all the time.
Yeah.
So I think. Do you know what I mean?
That depends on how he settles in, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If he comes in after the international duty and is flying in training, gets a game like early on before, like Salah and Mane are back fully, and he scores 2 goals, gets an assist, and he starts like that, there's no saying that he doesn't play.
I know, but that's the point, though. It's win-win, isn't it? Because if he doesn't, and he's slow settling in, it's not the end. Like what I'm saying.
You've still got our original front 3.
If you were neck and neck with City now, I think you'd be thinking, do we really want to be breading them now? We'd rather go with what we know and whatever. Whereas if the gap stays as it is, and whatever, and City don't absolutely collapse, then it's not going to hurt you a great deal if he comes in. He's a little bit slow off the mark, because what you're thinking is the main thing now is let's think about next season. Let's think about firing on all fronts, and maybe and the other thing's the Champions League. You obviously can't play in the Champions League, so it's like you can't use him in that either.
Is that definite?
I thought the Champions League thing had been scrapped. I think he can play.
I think he can, Judge. We'll have to Google that quickly.
I'm sure the club tired thing got scrapped,
Did it?
Yeah, either last season or the season before, I'm sure it did.
Or is there an amnesty when you get to like the quarters or something like that? Where
possibly something like that, but I'm sure he can play.
I bet you Terry. This is the type of thing Terry would know the insides out of, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
maybe.
But no, obviously,
just on this City collapse that you're saying, I think you're over egging how far behind we are here.
Oh yeah, I do a bit.
It's 6 points if we win our game in hand. If we beat them, it's
City,
3.
So how many games have City lost, or how many points how many games have they lost so far? 2.
I don't know, two or 3.
2.
So they need to lose realistically 4 games between now and the end of the season, and you have to win every single game, including them.
We've got to play them. We've got to play
I know,
them.
that's what I said, including them. So you have to win every game, including beating them.
Well, said like a true
Southampton have just got points off them. I don't think it's a catastrophic collapse from City for us to catch them. I don't. I think it's unrealistic. I don't think it's catastrophic.
This season of both them and yous, I think it is, because you're assuming that yous are going to go on and win pretty much every single game. And if you don't win every single game, it means they can afford to lose 4 or 5 games, which, by anyone's standards, if you've only lost 2 coming up to this point, that's a pretty catastrophic collapse, particularly the City team standards, anyway.
Fair enough. Gary, what's the news on the red side of the park with the Carvalho from Fulham? I looked this morning and it said that you didn't get the paperwork done in time. Is that something that you'll probably revisit in the summer? What happened?
I think so. Yeah, I think they've been following him for a while, and they were just going to make the move now because Fulham. I think at the end of the season he's out of contract, so it means going to a tribunal should he sign for an English club. I think Liverpool were taking advantage of Fulham not wanting him to go abroad where they wouldn't get any money and try and get a deal done now where Fulham are guaranteed. I think they agreed on about 8 million or something like that. But then at the final hour, you've got I think in the Premier League you've got a declaration form of an intent. Yeah, a deal sheet where you can just put that in before the 11 o'clock deadline, and then you can get the deal done in the next couple of hours, which is I think what Everton done with the Dele Alli deal. Liverpool in the EFL, they don't have that such sheet, so we had to get the full deal done before 11 o'clock, and we just didn't manage to do it in time, so that's why I fell through. I think the fact that we were so, intent on getting it done at the end, by the end of this window, I think you will see. Even it might not even be the end of the season; it might be in the coming days. There'll be some sort of agreement in place where it'll be like we'll agree on this amount of money, so it doesn't go to a tribunal, and we'll sign them in July.
Yeah, you can't get the signature over the line, but you can do like a pre-contract type thing, can't you? So that'll be getting done. That definitely. And I think if it did go to a tribunal, the fact that a deal's been agreed at 8 million, that'll be used as evidence to say, well, what's he actually worth? The Harvey Elliott tribunal, that come out to 8.5 million. So it's not like, well, now that it goes to tribunal, the price could go up. I think it'll be the same.
Doesn't change a lot. The only thing it does change is that a foreign club could get him in between now and the end of the season for nothing with no tribunal. So you might get someone like a Real or a Milan or someone like that going, let's throw mega money at him because we're going to get him for absolutely nothing. So that's the only outside risk you've got. I can't see it happening personally, but that's the only outside risk, I think, versus getting them last night.
That's what I don't understand how the pre-contract stuff works, whether like if we can get him to sign something like that, whether it means he can't. I don't know how it works.
Not when someone it's a pre-contract agreement, but it's not valid when there's a tribunal involved because they've got to ultimately decide what the fee is, and therefore that contract is kind of nil and void. Bit embarrassing for Rick Parry, that, by the way, chairman of the EFL, who hasn't even got a form for people to authorise signings. So
form EFL, hilarious. Reds, before we do move on, one of the questions that you've probably got asked most last season was, does Nat Phillips has a future? Should he stay as 4th choice, 5th choice? I think I'm not going to come out and say we're massive fans of him, but I think you took a shine to him and said that hopefully there'll be some sort of future for him. It looks now that he's probably played his last game. Does he come back from Bournemouth? I don't think so. What do you think? Are you happy for him? You're sad to see him go. What's your thoughts on that one?
I was surprised to see it was the Championship, to be honest, but I think it just means that no one in the Premier League came in for him. I think it devalues him a bit, Gary, to be honest. Like, even if he does great for them and they come up and they want to keep him, the only evidence you've got to go off, really, or the most common, recency bias will be that, he did good, but it was the Championship. So I feel like it might devalue what we might end up getting for him.
Possibly, yeah, but you've still got the spell that he had in our first team and a long spell at that because of the injuries we had. And, he done really well, which is why we were so, probably over-egged about him when we were talking about him in the past. He's done such a good job, which is why you're saying there, you're surprised it's not a Premier League move. I don't think if he does brilliant for Bournemouth and they end up coming up, I think that just increases his value because he's helped them to a promotion. I was half hoping that we'd give him to like Burnley or Newcastle or something just to try and do damage towards Everton's play to stay in the league.
I was going to say the only thing I'd say against Nat Phillips is that obviously he's shown himself to be like outstanding in the air, didn't he? Like a proper aerial competitor. Every ball that went near him in the air, he won. And obviously I haven't done intense analysis of him, but I'm pretty sure that the stats will tell you that that's where his strengths are, and the other areas are a little bit sketchy in terms of like, okay, yeah, he's plays in a good Liverpool team. I know it was a little bit disjointed, but still plays in a team that's predominantly on the front foot and isn't necessarily having to do too much defending. I think if you're a Premier League team that's down there, that's a big gamble. That going for someone who's played for the top side, who've invariably got the ball and not always under pressure, and the only real, thing you can hang your hat on is that he's bossing the air.
He's bossing the air. His distribution is very, very good. He's really good.
Phil, it doesn't matter.
No. What I was going to say, Judgy, they're the positives. The negatives, he's not all over the place defensively, but he's slow. He is definitely slow.
Yeah.
That's otherwise he'd be a top world class defender, I think. But his pace, if he gets exposed, he's getting rinsed. Really.
I think that was being the thing with
sprint away from being a world class.
Oh yeah, that's all I heard. What Phil said then, that's bonkers. That.
Why is it? I'm only a 10 second 100 meter record from being
being what? Being a 100 meter runner.
No, but really, don't you think so, Gary?
I'm not having that he's like one of the top defenders in world football, Phil. I'm not backing you on that one. I'm backing you on most things to do with Liverpool. I'm not backing you on that.
I think I would.
If Michael Keane was fast.
No.
He was in the air, he has a brain.
He didn't bottle it every time he's under a bit of
pressure.
The point is, the only thing he's lacking is pace, because he can read the game very well because he hasn't got pace.
The only thing he's lacking is like, if you had him in them FIFA, like one of them FIFA cards, he'd be like pretty much 90s and everything apart from pace.
But you've got to be good at reading the game when you're slow. So reading the game, winning what else is there?
You've got
tackling.
Yeah. So Phil, if he's a Michael Owen style pace, you're having him as good as Van Dijk.
Getting there.
Oh wow!
Getting there.
I think we need to exercise our rights.
We need to move
on from this, otherwise there's going to be comments galore. Boys, we're up for the Cup, FA Cup this weekend. Guys alluded to their big Premiership games next week. We're going to cover those on Monday night, but we have got the FA Cup. Everton first, Judgy. I was listening to Simon Jordan on TalkSport earlier on, and he was saying that if he was Frank Lampard, he would just forgo this game. He would put everything into Newcastle. For me, I'm the opposite. I think this is a really good chance for Frank Lampard to get the grounds on his side with some good football and get us into the fifth round of the FA Cup. Where do you stand on it?
There's no way Frank Lampard is foregoing the FA Cup in any way, shape or form. I think there won't be many players in the Premier League era that have won the FA Cup more times than Frank Lampard. And he'll know how much the FA Cup means in this country. He'll know how much the FA Cup meant to him as a player. He'll certainly know the impact that a good cup run has, whether you're flying in the league or not flying in the league. I think it's a ludicrous statement made by Simon Jordan just to get some bites. It's just, that's a mad one. That I mean, it's been a sellout for a few weeks. It was a sellout before he even got the job, so it is going to be bouncing. And it was, before he came in, it was the very small thread of hope that anyone had of having a degree of, or getting a degree of success out of the season. And when I say a degree of success, I mean getting to a semi-final. Semi-final or, maybe a final. If you get to the final, anything can happen, as we well know. So, no, there's not a chance that's going to happen. It won't be in anyone's mind whatsoever. Like you said, I think it's a great chance to get the fans on side. It's a great chance to gain some momentum for the players. I think for the players who are playing this weekend as well, it's a chance for them to stake the claim because Van der Beek isn't available, Dele Alli isn't available. There's at least 2 players potentially that are coming out of those forward positions. So they'll want to show that, look, they need to stay on the bench until at least the week after.
And don't forget that we haven't got Toure. He's out for a month, isn't he? So the midfield is sort of, it's going to be Gomez and Allen. Yeah, it's going to be Gomez and Allen. Unless he is a big advocate of 4-3-3 and he does stick a Gabaman or he sticks a Mason Holgate in there and he does play
or he's straight away going to go with his approach that he has at his previous 2 clubs and throw in Yango in there.
Possibly, yeah. Good shout, yeah. Look towards the youth.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting lineup, that's for sure, because he's going to get the best part of 3 or 4 days, three days maybe to see the players. I think it's his first proper training session where he's going to have everyone back today. It'll be interesting to see what he goes with.
Are you hoping that we play? It's very easy to just say win, but are you hoping that for the first time this season we're on the front foot and we're taking the game? Because he's mentioned this week in his press conference that he wants his team to be crosses into the box. He wants to be pressing in their half. Are you expecting that almost straight away? First 10 minutes straight into them?
Yeah. On the basis of what he said so far, it's been out intensity, work rate, like you say, playing on the front foot. You're at home against any team in the FA Cup. That's what it's about, isn't it? Particularly a team from the same league, where Brentford and Everton have probably got a little bit of a half an eye on thinking, do we really need this? You know what I mean? They're at that stage of the season where a few defeats for them and they're getting sucked into it, and they can't, as a newly promoted team, think about going down. So I think absolutely I'll expect us to be on the front foot and trying to get a few goals against Brentford and to try and improve the mood.
Is there a fear for you, and this probably goes back, I should have asked this at the very start, is there a fear for you that there's a number of players who do get the reset button pressed? Do we see Michael Keane again because he's going to get a fresh chance? Or is there a chance now that the new backroom staff, which are 90% external apart from Duncan Ferguson, are going to know about this and going to be saying, look, we need to move some of these on now? Is this finally the chance to remove some of the dead wood, or is it reset for them again?
I'm not really bothered about it, to be honest, because I think Frank Lampard, I'm certain, has got 2 things in his mind. One is to get us safe, and I don't think he'll want any of the players in the squad to think that they're being cast out, because he might need them. So I think to a degree is going to be a reset, but I've got no illusions that excuse me, that he'll have an idea of what type of player he wants to play in what particular position. So there's going to be some players who are going to get a pass because they might be his type of player. But some players, I think he'll know from day one, he's not for me, but I'm probably going to have to use him between now and the end of the season. So I don't really care for now. It's just, and I don't think he'll care. He'll want all the players to feel like it's a clean slate, like any manager does. Klopp's done the same, where certain players got games under them, and then by the summer, or very quickly, they were out.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. I'm looking forward to it. I'm taking Noah, taking my little boy on Saturday. It's a second game. I've been taking him to Tranmere. Anything to show him a win, as you know. So I'm thinking...
Mills' case struck Tranmere on Saturday as well. Biggest game the club have had in like 2 years and got thumped 4-0 or something, was it?
Absolutely bad. It was a full house as well. He's banging into us 40 now. He's 4 next month, isn't he? So he's getting more into it. So
what score was his first game?
1-2-0. He played Norwich, but he got off at half time. He just didn't want to. He was done. So he's staying a bit longer at the women's games and the Tranmere games. So I'm hoping that we get the full Goodison Park experience on Saturday. Nothing but a win for me, Judgy. I'm going to go 2-11. What about you?
I'm going to go 3-1. I think Brentford will get in the score sheet. I think we'll go a couple of goals up in the first half. They'll get one back, and then I think Dobbin will come off the bench and get the third.
Your boss. Oh, hope you're right, my friends. I hope you're right. Reds, use it up for the cup again. So is it Cardiff on Sunday, 12 o'clock at Anfield? The big question as always with Jurgen Klopp approaching, especially the early rounds of the cup games. Is it going to be a weakened side, or do you expect Jurgen Klopp to now be looking at where you are in the Carabao Cup and going, let's emulate this, let's get to a second final, which your first team are more than good enough to do, obviously?
Yeah, I think you'll probably find that it'll be a mixture. I think you'll see a couple of first team players in it, but you'll certainly see some of the players that have been playing recently, in Cade Gordon and Tyler Morton. I think you might see them come into this game. And I don't begrudge that either. You know, I do want to see us progress, but at the same time, you know, you can still play them players and get through, as we've seen in the Carabao Cup before we got to the later stages. I think with the fact that we don't play until Thursday after this, it might be a big point. He might play maybe a couple more first team players than he maybe would have if we were playing, say, Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, I do like the FA Cup. I like the cup games, and hopefully we can keep the cup run going as we did in the Carabao. Phil, you're on mute.
Sounds better than Phil, to be honest.
Was that because what I said about Phillips, who did that? I was going to say Cardiff are 20th in the Championship, so they don't look any great shakes, do they? Liverpool have had a week off, basically, and again, they've got some time after the game as well before we play again, so for that reason, you want to get some of your first team players back up to speed, don't you? So I agree with you, Gary. I think it'll be a bit of a mixture. Is Diaz, will he be ready to play? Do we know?
I have no idea, to be honest. I don't know how long it had to be before he can play in the cup and things, so I don't know. Wouldn't mind seeing him make an appearance if he can, like.
Yeah, I've got a feeling he will. I don't see why it would take longer than that. And so if he's fit, definitely he'll be playing. Obviously, Salah and Mane will be nowhere near. I don't even know if they'll be back.
No, they're not back. Unless they get beat in the semi-final.
Okay. If they do get to the final, I think they need a week on the beach. So I don't think we're going to see them for a little while, to be honest. But no, yeah, I'd like to see Diaz make his debut. And I think there'll be a blend of first team players and youth. And yeah, what can you say, Gary, other than you expect a comfortable win?
Yeah, pretty much. Say that most weeks, though, to be fair. Regardless of the opposition. But yeah, I think you know, I'm hoping with like Millsy said, with us seeing us get to the final of the Carabao Cup, I'm hoping Klopp's going to take it a bit more seriously this year and, you know, put a decent performance in, get us through, and hopefully a decent draw after it.
Yeah. Prediction then?
I'll go 4-0 Liverpool.
Sounds, I'll go 3-0.
Probably will be as well. No one used it. Judgy, to bring you back in with BetMate. How did you get on last week?
I won, yeah.
We take.
I didn't win it. I come second. I think I was third, and then they recalculate the points, and there must have been a bit of a late tackle got thrown in stoppage time or something got me in, and you finished just outside the points, didn't you, Gary?
Yeah, I got sixth, captained the wrong person, and played the wrong fullback for Liverpool.
Well, I think I was a fullback away. I think if I would have had Robertson instead of Trent, I would have actually won it. But I'm not complaining. Like,
the money to that cat zone by yours, or
what's that?
The money to that cat zone by yours, that cat charity.
It's still in the past the moment. I haven't withdrew it. So that's it. Again, comments in here. I said if I win any money on BetMate, then I'll donate to a charity. So if anyone wants to put it in the comments for the YouTube video, recommends any good charities, then let me know. I'll do that. Just one on that note, BetMate are covering the Old Firm tonight. Should be a cracking game. Is it tonight or tomorrow? It's tonight actually. But Adam Ramsey will probably be making his debut for the Rangers, so I'll probably keep an eye on that. Before I withdraw, I'll have one little go with that, and then I'll.
No, I mean we'll talk more about the game on when there's more games. When our games are back on next week on Monday, we'll talk more.
Yeah, sorry, I should have made the note. They're not covering at the moment the FA Cup game, so there's no game. None of our games to play, but our fixtures for Newcastle and Leicester, which are our next Premier League fixtures, our game's already on there. So if you want to get ahead and get your team in, you can change it at any time up until 5 minutes before the kickoff of the Everton game. I think we've already put our teams in anyway. Well, I have anyway.
Yeah, I think we'll probably change it based on if something happens in the FA Cup game. So we will talk more about it on Monday and give you we think are going to be the point scorers and get you that money for either the Gary money.
Mine based on whatever Newcastle's lineup is.
Oh, don't want to talk about it. We're talking FA Cup. You can have me on Monday. Just leave me for now. We're back on Thursday for Game On. I'm not too sure which ones of us are on. I think I'm on. Gary, are you back on? Might be Terry and Pite, you tag in.
Yeah.
on Thursday. So we're going to have a couple of games and we're going to have a look back at this week in history. I think, Judgy, this week in history, the Everton one will be about a Senegalese prince who scored a cracker whilst playing for a different team past Liverpool and made the park ends a run.
Anything to put a smile on your face, eh?
Need it. Absolutely need it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. From myself, Ian Mills, Gary Judge, Gary Murray and Phil Roberts. We are all up for the FA Cup. We will see you on Thursday and again next Monday. This is just not ending.